All right. Well, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'm really excited to tell you about this Jerusalem program that we're working on. There's a couple of different pieces to it, but what I really want to do before I get to that is I really want to give you a sense of what this city is and what is special about it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you just like maybe the first 5 or 10 minutes of a documentary that was made for Al Jazeera. And Al Jazeera is a Middle Eastern news site. And this is a story. It's a true story, but it's kind of a remarkable story. The story is about a church called the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which was the shrine that was built over the cave, where most Christian believers in the Catholic and Greek Orthodox and other traditions, not the Protestant tradition, but the other ones, believe is the cave where Christ's body was buried and from which the resurrection took place. So this church was built over that cave and commemorates it. Officially, in the doctrine of most of the Catholic and Eastern churches, that is accepted as truthful. Different Protestant denominations think different things. And so depending on the denomination that you grew up in, you may or may not believe that. But many, many, many Christians, hundreds of millions of Christians all over the world do believe it. And it's a fascinating church because it's, of course, a very important site. And that site, I mean, the Christians themselves have been fighting over it, as you might imagine. And well, at a certain point, they decided that a Muslim family living in Jerusalem should keep the key of the church. And the reason they decided that was because, well, it's complicated, but I thought it would be a way to give you a sense of what is sort of unique and special about this city and what studying in this city would be like. Once we've watched that, and we'll only watch maybe the first sort of maybe 5 to 7, maybe 10 minutes of it. Once we've watched that, I'll pause and I'll tell you a little bit about the program and what we're going to do, and I'll be very happy to take questions if there are questions. All right.
It's a normal Sunday morning. 3 separate services are being held here in the same place at the same time, just meters from each other. The Armenian Orthodox are conducting Mass in Armenian in a chapel above the church. The Assyrian Orthodox Mass is conducted in Aramaic, the language spoken by Jesus himself. While the Roman Orthodox service is conducted in Arabic. This is the story of Christianity's holiest church.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I'm sorry, I do not know why the sound cut out. I did, but you guys saw the. So I guess you all missed the voiceover, yeah?
We caught the beginning, and then it wasn't quite, it sort of cut off. I was trying to connect you through the chat, so apologies. So.
Okay, yeah, no worries. I just saw that. Okay, so can you all hear me now though?
Yes.
All right. So what I'm going to suggest is maybe that we let's stop that. Let's I mean, you've seen the images, right? So rather than make us watch it all again, what you saw was a single building built into the side of a mountain, with 5 different churches in it. One is Roman Catholic, one is Greek Orthodox, one is Armenian, and one is I want to say Ethiopian. And they each have masses in different places, and they have them all at the same time. And when it is opened every morning and closed every night, the priests who share this church, and there are priests from all these different religions that share this church, the priests who share this church lock themselves in. In the morning, the person who unlocks them is this keeper of the key, and his name is Wajih Nusayba. Wajih Nusayba is a Palestinian Muslim from one of the oldest Islamic families in Jerusalem, and they trace their lineage back to the original conquerors of Jerusalem with the Muslim armies that entered in the 7th century. Nusayba's family has been the keeper of the key since that time. That is to say, a Sunni Muslim aristocrat, you know, I mean, and we don't really have an aristocracy in this country quite the same way. And so to give you a sense of how prominent his family is in America would be to say, I would have to compare him to like Britain and, you know, the British aristocracy, right? He's like, it's like he, you know, his family is, you know, like they're the cousins of the king or something. So they've been the keeper of this church. And that is a very strange, now that key was originally made for the Emperor Charlemagne. If you ever heard of Charlemagne and the Holy Roman Empire, if you took AP European history or whatever, right? Like that key was made for Charlemagne. And that space has been shared that way since about the year 800. Nusayba has never been inside the church because as an observant Muslim, he can't go inside, not because he can't go inside a church, but because those churches are full of icons and religious imagery, and Muslims, like Jews, are forbidden from, and like many Protestants, are forbidden from making graven images unto the Lord. But he prays at a mosque, which is right next door, and that mosque has outside of it a charter that set out the status quo and the balance of power between the Christians of Jerusalem and the Muslims of Jerusalem when the Muslim armies conquered it. And it remained that way till the Crusades, and then when the Crusaders were defeated. And now on top of that, you have the fact that there's this whole other population in the city of Jews who are in fact the majority of that city. Now, that makes it a very complicated and interesting place. And it is a place that is shared, and is a place that is deeply, deeply remembered. And it is remembered by a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And the way that city works, the way that city has evolved to allow its various pieces to be shared. I could have shown you a video of the Jewish quarter of the old city of Jerusalem, where there is the remains of a synagogue and a house that were burned when the Romans conquered Jerusalem in the year 70 AD. And the ruin remains, like the way that we have a mound at UA, they have a mound. It's called the burnt house. And this has remained in place. Now, these different communities, they don't actually get along all that well. They don't really like each other all that much. right? I mean, I don't want to make it sound like this is some sort of happy story, you know, where everybody sort of sings Kumbaya, because it's not. It is more like a city in which people go about their daily lives, but they go about their daily lives in a place that has thousands of years of ghosts and commemorations and memorials. And they are very, very, very jealous of those memorials, because not because they are intolerant of other people's memorials or because they necessarily even believe those memorials themselves. It's because if someone were to take away one of those memorials, one of those privileges, one of those prerogatives, we would be saying that their views don't quite matter as much. And of course, once you start saying that, people are going to become very jealous about what other rights and prerogatives you might take away. So if you're from the US and you're watching a lot of the arguments that we're having about Civil War statues and such things, you are going to understand some aspects of why these people take this seriously and why it's important. And so here now you have this, so that's why we designed this program to be a program around memory, faith, and politics. Because just like the question of whether or not a Civil War general whose statue was put in a certain place, not in 1867, but in 1925, because of a certain political argument that was taking place in the American South or the American North, or because of a certain balance of power between Northerners and Southerners, between African Americans and people who think of themselves as white. And so even if you don't particularly care that much about Nathan Bedford Forrest, you recognize those changes to people's memories and memorializations as changes in the political power of the present day moment. And so it makes sense to think about how cities that share these complex pasts do it. And it also makes sense because we are a very religious society, and we are a society in which we wear our religion very, very loudly and externally, regardless of what religion we were born into. And the thing is, if you are a Christian or a Muslim or a Jewish person, you will find lots of people who belong to about the same religion as you, but they carry that very, very differently. They express that faith very differently. They express that identity very differently. So in that sense, this city is an incomparably interesting place. Now, not everything we do in this program is going to be about all that, but a chunk of it will be. And that's because, well, I mean, I picked the Church of the Holy Sepulchre because the Christian story of Jesus' death and resurrection is one that, if you grew up in this country, you probably know at least a little bit about. But there are Jewish shrines, there are Muslim shrines, and then there are public spaces. And then there's the fact that the entire city has at different times been claimed as a kind of religious shrine. And there's the fact that there is a political struggle going on between two different nationalities who sit on different sides of the religious divide that also sits on top of that city. And so there's a bunch of interesting things to talk about there, and there's a bunch of interesting things that one can learn that I think are interesting and appropriate for smart, curious college students who come from a place where religious faith and political memory and politics mix in a lot of interesting and complicated ways. And that having been said, we're still trying to figure out who's going to be interested in this and how they're going to want to do it. And so the program's there's a lot that I would like to hear from you guys about what you'd be interested in and what you'd like to do and where you're studying, because we're working with partners in Israel that have a great deal of experience and have a lot of contacts. And so we can really build this program out. I mean, if you are sort of interested in that stuff, but you're also, like a science person and you want to do some science stuff, like there may be a way to accommodate that. It sort of depends on who you guys are and what you guys want, right? The other thing to know is that I'm Israeli American binational, and I've lived in Israel for about 10 years of my life. I'm a professor of political science and religious studies here at UA. My wife and I are designing this course. My wife is an instructor and as a lawyer and an attorney by training. But before that, she was trained in political philosophy, and she's from a very, very old religious tradition. And so her background on this, I grew up in the Jewish faith. She grew up in the Anglican faith. So we bring very, very different perspectives to this city and to the politics and to the war.
Okay, and I just want to chime in real quick. We have about 5 minutes left.
Yes, I've been talking for a long time, and I forget.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. Yeah, no, this is a great overview.
Because we started late, and so I'm sorry, you guys. Please, I would love to hear your questions.
Yeah, feel free to either unmute yourself, or you can put your questions in the chat box. And yeah, because this is going to be the first time you're going to be leading this program. Is that correct? Yes,
the program is brand new, and we have a lot of pieces that we're still trying to figure out how we're going to do it. And that's why we'd be very glad to hear from you guys. But like the thing is, we have what term is the program? I think we're thinking summer 2.
Okay. Do we have? Is it like 10-day program, 18-day?
I think it will be. We're looking at a week of studying before we go. Most of that will be remotely delivered, so you get the readings and stuff done so that you kind of know what you're looking at before you go. And then we'll be there for about 18 days, yeah.
Okay. So I see another question. So I noticed other faculty-led trips have offered UA courses to take while on the trip. So is what UA course is
right. So there will be a course called something like Memory, Faith, and Politics, and that'll be a 3-credit course. The other course we were thinking about was something like War and the Politics of Commemoration. These would both be political science classes, and they would count to about 6 credits. But again, part of that depends on what our students are looking for, right? Like because Israel is there's a lot of stuff you can do, and there's a very big university system, and there's a lot of resources there. So my training's in poli-sci and in religion, and so the courses would be with that orientation of international politics, Middle East studies, right? That's kind of my home turf, and certainly one of the courses will have that PSC, religion, international politics quality to it, Middle East studies quality to it. But the second course, the second 3 credits, there are ways to do that differently if you're from social work or ed or something else, and there's a bunch of you that are in that place. That's something we can talk about.
Let's see, other questions.
But yes, as now, 2 300 level PSC. Yeah. That's right. Thanks, Adrian.
Yeah, and do you have sort of how many students you're hoping to take for this program?
We would rather have it be a good program with a bunch of really interesting students, with a small group of interesting students. So, I mean, ideally, I would like 15. Like, 15 makes it a little bit cheaper than if it's just 5, right? Yeah. But 35 kids who are like, Jerusalem's a gnarly and interesting place. And if there were 35 kids who really wanted to go and were super into it, that would make sense. But if you don't want folks kind of wandering off and like that would be, go to Rome. It's safer. And I mean, Jerusalem's perfectly safe. It's not that it's not. It's just, these are, we're going to go into some very, we'll go into some, churches that are from the 8th century, and they're really, really small, and we'll go meet the bishop of the church. And that's a very, that guy's going to give us some time because, I know him, and he knows me, and he's doing me a solid. And so I want the kids who are there to be excited about that.
Okay.
Like,
one
does that make sense?
Yeah, one last quick question. So if somehow COVID-19, it sort of scraps things, are you going to be offering this course online, or are you just going to wait till next?
That's a very good question. And I'm just about to write to Adrian about that, because the organizer in Israel would like us to have a fallback remote option. And so I'm thinking about it, and I was just about to write to the folks in overseas to get their take on whether that would be a good thing to do.
Okay, wonderful.
Well, I'm willing to, but.
Yeah, of course. I'm sorry, y'all, we are out of time. If you have more questions, feel free. Professor, you can put your email in the chat box. So,
oh yeah, definitely. I'm right here. It's
and
right
if you have questions for the education abroad side of things, how to fill out the application, feel free to contact us at studyabroad@ua.edu. All right.
Okay, there you go. Sorry, now everybody can see it. DJ Levine at ua.edu.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would love to hear from you guys. So thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. We hope that that you'll be interested and hopefully apply for this program. So
yeah, you bet, man.
So
Reed, Turner, Liam, thanks so much, and definitely be in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
Bye.